got a problem with my Pro Pointer. Now, for a start, the battery has got quite worn. The section there, so like the switch, basically the switch failed inside. And you can see it's back together, but let me just push it. Alright, now even if I press on or off, it doesn't go off. I've made it so it stays on all the time. The way I get around this is by when I don't want it on, I just have it like that. But generally when I'm hunting, I have the battery in place, but I'll only screw the cap on so far, so it won't be on. But when and what I've had to do is stick like a piece of bark or something on here, and then it's on. And then when I want it off, I have to unscrew the end of the cap to to take it off. So I'm getting really tired of that. Because I took this off and had a look, it's voided the warranty now. Because what I did is I put the switch back together and put some super glue, and I got it so that it would stay on. So I am an electrician by trade. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think. I've got one alternative I have is that I'll stick a little toggle switch. I have tons of toggle switches. So perhaps have a toggle switch on the outside body of the Pro Pointer. I'm just going through my box now. I have soldering equipment, everything. I've got a lot of electronics stuff here. Just trying to play with what I've got. See what will work. That switch works really really easily, so that could be an option. It's quite large and bulky, but don't know. So I'm going to keep that one out. These toggle ones are quite demanding. They're brand new. Got heaps of them. I found them. Somebody threw them out, which is ridiculous. Also got some on-off buttons like this, which I could rig up across those two contacts there. I could have it on the back like this and press off, press on, press off. But that's another one I'm going to think about. Toggle. I need it to be able to go on and off. I don't know if this is just momentary, which means on off, on when you press, off when you take your finger off, or it could be on or on, then off the second time. Feels momentary. This one's momentary. So it's going to be very hard to get a switch to actually suit that. Really, I need to sort all my stuff out. I've just got this box full of stuff, so I'm going to have a play with that. Probably take apart that little switch there. Just take that top off because I can see the contacts inside. I don't really want to pull the guts out of that. And then just solder on the two contacts in there. Perhaps run the wires up through and out the side somewhere. Probably on this side, to be honest. And go from there. But we'll see. I've decided upon this switch. It's from a stereo. I've cut the legs off it, and I've done buzzed it out with the ohm meter, so I know which one is turning on and off when I press it. So I'm thinking it has little stands on it. I've got to cut some of these legs off. I've just got to work out where to mount that. It'll sit something like that. It's a little bit bulky, but I'm going to put it so it's up towards the end. So we'll see how we go with that. Got the soldering iron heating up, my soldering station. I'm going to get some wire and solder to these two lugs. These two lugs here. One 2, and we'll go from there. Right, now what I've done is in the battery compartment area, I've drilled a small hole. Might be able to see there, small hole, past where the battery touches, and I've fed the wire through to the switch area, so wires going through like this. Now what I plan to do is where I mount this on the body, I'll drill another small hole through, and it will be silicon. I may even put some heat shrink over this. I know it's not waterproof, but what can I do? I'll make it as waterproof as possible. So that's where I'm up to now. The risk here is I've got a couple of dobs of super glue on the actual pro pointer switch, and so I've got to take that cover off, and I can see the 2 connections inside. I don't really want to pull all this circuit board out, which I've done before, but yeah, so that's where I'm up to. Okay, I've now pulled the top part of the switch off, and down in the side of the switch itself there is the contacts. Alright, so I've bridged the connection. So what I've got to do is solder onto those 2 little lugs, put my switch across, solder the wires to each of those 2 little lugs, and then I'll be able to bring the wires out the side and through the switch. This is not going to be easy, but I think I can do it. I've had to resort to pulling out the insides. Now I did this once before. It's very hard to get back because of that little cable you can see with 3 wires on it. Now what I'll do, I'm putting the battery in to make the connection. There's the switch itself there, but the connection is so small to try and solder. So what you've got is the 3 little legs. Where are they? There, those little 6 legs you see right here. They are the back of the switch. Let me see if I can point to it properly. So these 6 legs here, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh no. Yeah, so if I touch those 2, there's our switch. Oops. So what I'm going to do is probably solder them onto the back of those legs, and that'll be for the switch wires. So I'm going to go from there. Now on the back of the 2 legs of the push button switch, which I've identified as the ones that turn it on normally, I've attached, soldered these 2 wires, and I'll give you a demonstration in just a minute. I'm putting the battery into the back of the pro pointer. Now I've got 2 wires here, I'm going to touch them together. It's very hard to do. Anyway, right, so put one on there, touch the other one. Now it's on, off. So the last part that I just did, getting that whole circuit board back in, sliding it back in place inside, is extremely hard. Certainly not for the faint-hearted. Now I've got that back in. I've now got to put the screw. I've run my wires through the body of the pro pointer, and I'll now show you a preliminary operation using the wires I've run through. I've got the back of the pro pointer on. We have our little wires coming through, which will be sealed later. So I'm going to leave it on this angle so you can see the light. I'm just going to touch it together now. It's on now and off. Okay, I've got the soldering iron ready there. I'm just going to what we call tin these little these wires here. Solder it so it's like pre-soldered. Ow, ow, that hurt. Flick that off. Alright, that's pretty good. Then what I'm going to do is go to the switch itself. try and put some solder onto these lugs. Okay, now you can see the wires are soldered. Well, I hope you can. The wires soldered to this side of the switch. So now I'm going to give a demonstration for you. Switch rubber is back in place now. This should work. Alright, so what we have is something that looks very rough and ready. It still is a fully functional pro pointer. It's just that the switch itself, I've had to do this. It's on there very strong. I did find that if I've tightened it quite tight, but if I tighten it too tight, the actual switch won't operate correctly. So the rubber's back in place, as I said before. There we go. So it's fully functioning, except with this switch. Desperate times, desperate measures. I certainly can't afford another $60. Sorry, $160 Australian for another one of these. So I've just made a repair, taking a little bit of ingenuity. Obviously, I can't expose this to water in any way, shape, or form in the future. So, but hey, keeps me back in the game. Once again, I wouldn't advise this. This isn't a how-to video. This is just to show you what I have done with some know-how. I won't accept any responsibility for anybody trying to do this and stuffing up their pro pointers.